Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and I've got to say this is an absolute pleasure to have this man coming in all the way from York in the United Kingdom. It is early on a Tuesday morning in York. Mr. Michael Carr, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. It's great to be here. As a big fan of the show as well, it's great to be here.
Now, full disclosure, we've been connected on LinkedIn for a little while, and you are, I'm not sure if we'd call you a groupie, but I've got to say you're one of probably a small group of people that are regular, I guess, feedback givers of the podcast, and really appreciate you, first of all, plugging in to the podcast, but more importantly, using a lot of stuff that we talk about. And it's not so much what I talk about, but the guests that bring lots of gold over many, many different episodes. So we were talking over LinkedIn just before Christmas, and I said, hey, I've got a really radical idea. You've got a really interesting background. You've only recently, and when I say recently, the last few years moved into sales. It'd be fantastic to get you on to talk about your transition, your experiences, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that will be able to take lots and lots of gold nuggets from your experiences. So at the moment, you are a highly credentialed sales professional at PlayScheme.
That's right.
But before we jump about and talk about some of the, I guess, the experiences and lessons, love you to give the audience a bit of background in terms of, what you've done for the last 25 plus years and really the story around how you ended up in sales, because it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my background is in education. So I was a teacher and a head teacher for 23 years, and in terms of leadership, lots of opportunities for leadership within schools. Uh, Decided a couple of years ago I was ready for something new. I love my job, love the kids, love the staff. I think sometimes in education, I think I just got to the point where I wanted something new. I did a coaching qualification, and then sort of made the brave decision to sort of step out of teaching. Was doing some coaching, was doing some training, was putting lots of things on LinkedIn as well, and trying to push myself out there. And my now boss Steve, who at PlayScheme, who I've known for years, because I used to be a customer of PlayScheme, which is also a great story. He'd seen that I'd moved on, just sent me a message saying, Michael, we've got a position going at LinkedIn. I see you're not in teaching anymore. Do you want to come and have a chat? So it was completely left field. Even I said, I messaged my wife at work saying, you won't believe who I'm going to speak to this afternoon. Uh, went to play a scheme. I think within about 10 minutes, he just, in terms of the values of the company, what Steve wanted to achieve when he talked about the role and opportunities to grow the role as well, and which really interested me. And yeah, sort of there and then I made a decision there. This is definitely for me. And so I'm just about 2 years in, Darren, to being in sales.
Yeah. So 23 years as a teacher, and then I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure like 15 years ago, one of the last things you would have been thinking about is, oh, I'm going to be a salesperson.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how it's come about. I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny when I think about it, even in my interview, because you think about, I'm used to going to interviews and having lots and lots to talk about,
Yeah.
but I've never had a sales opportunity. But in terms of that reflection, when I was a head teacher, the school that I took over, only about, in terms of intake, about 50% of parents who got their children into my school wanted to be there. So we got a lot of second placements. They'd rather be, there was two really good schools on our doorstep. They wanted their kids to get into there. Those schools were full. So in terms of like that sales point of view, I had to really sell the school. And this is again before listening to your amazing podcast, Darren, and all the learning I've been doing. I very much put a sales plan together, like
Yeah.
very much almost like a lesson. What do I want to achieve from these meetings with the parents? What are the key messages? When we walked around the school, I made sure there were certain displays that were around the school that celebrated things like when the Year Six residential, when they go away, the forest schools work that we do with the younger children. Everything was there at
Yeah.
crucial points, and you got very good at practicing that sort of. It was a sales meeting.
Yeah.
And even in terms of sort of future development, so when we went outside, the outside of the school was in an awful mess when I got there. But we had plans, we budgeted for plans, things were coming. So you're almost selling that future reality that's coming. You're trying to sell that as well. So it was very much a sales meeting. And I think even in terms of teaching as well, you're on I don't know, it's a hot summer's day, which it isn't at the moment, but you got your children, yeah, your children come in after a sunny lunchtime. They're all bright red faced, they're all sweating, and they're like looking at you like, oh my goodness, are you really going to try and teach us now? And you've got to sell, you're there, you've got to be enthusiastic, you've got to sell that lesson to them.
It's phenomenal. As you were talking, I'm just thinking, you know what? There's so many parallels to what salespeople do on a daily basis in terms of having to having to paint a picture of the future state, having to get really clear on what the current state is, and then
Mm.
almost building a bridge that enables them to go from where they are right now to where they
Yeah,
ultimately need to go, but they don't
yeah,
necessarily understand that that's where they wanted to go in the first place. But it's your role to
absolutely.
try and influence them.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's actually you're probably doing that a long time before you actually got the sales title.
Absolutely. And I think even in terms of looking at the two schools that were on our doorstep and what makes us distinctive, what's different about what can we offer. And I was very honest with them saying, Joe, they're both great schools. You honestly, you can't go wrong, whichever one you choose. But this is what makes us different. We were a slightly smaller school, that real family feel. All the kids knew each other's name, the staff knew all the kids. So I very much sold that. We didn't have a field. We just had a yard at the back of a back that we did develop a little bit as much as we could. But
Yeah.
you get a lot of, particularly dads would come along worried about the sport. That was the thing. If you haven't got a field, you must be rubbish at sport. So very much push that. And in fact, the school down the road, we managed to thrash them at a game of netball. So I would mention that every week as a bit of tongue in cheek that we just absolutely hammered the school with the field. And that actually, if you're interested in sports, so are we. We've just got this sports award. So just make like, yeah, trying to sort of think about well, what are there going to be their worries about bringing their children here, but
Yeah.
also selling. This is what makes us different. This is what you'll get from us.
It's a really interesting point, Michael, because often what salespeople do when they're trying to, I guess, ethically influence or ethically convince a customer to take some form of action is they try to separate their own business or their own product from their competitors by trying to
Yeah,
demonstrate why they're better.
yeah,
And as you were talking, I get the sense that it wasn't so much about trying to elevate your school about above the others. It was giving, I guess, the parents of the future students, information around education about this
yeah,
is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we represent, this is what we're
yeah,
trying to do here, and not actually having to try to convince them that, oh, you've got to come here because those ones are full. Would that
yeah.
be a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. That was very much my approach. That yeah, this is us. This is what makes us. This is why we're a good school. This is what makes us distinctive. But actually, I would be very open that you've got two great schools, another two great schools on your doorstep, and actually we work together with those schools. Our staff are like maybe our maths leaders. They're working on projects at the moment. So they were. I knew the head teachers really well as well. They were all good schools and. What's nice is at Play Scheme now. I mean, I've had meetings with my MD where we've been talking to particular potential customers, and my boss will say, "Oh, who have you spoken to? Anyone else?" And they say, "Yeah, we've just spoken to this company. This is a real example. We've just spoken to this company." And Steve said, "They're a great company. I know the two people there. Yeah, they do you a great job." And the bloke smiled and he said, "Funnily enough, they've just said exactly the same about you," which is lovely. Yeah, which is really lovely.
It's and it's refreshing because unfortunately there are too many sales companies and people within companies who take the competitive angle a little bit too far,
Yeah,
where they try to elevate their company and in the process of try to, I guess, deconstruct or reduce what appears to be I guess, the capabilities of their competitors
yeah,
versus, you know what, if you say your main competitor is a reputable organization, they have a great product, they're filled with great people, and you kind of remove yourself from the outcome, that can be very disarming for a customer
Yeah.
because they feel as if, hey, Michael's not trying to push anything onto me. He's actually enabling me to make a buying decision and he's actually endorsing his competition. That's unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, just going back to my first chat at Play Scheme, Steve was very much we don't want we're not pushy sales. That's not what we do. It doesn't link with our customer values. And again, that was something that sort of really chimed with me. And it goes back to what you're always saying, Darren, isn't it? About sales as a service industry. We're here to serve people. We're here
Yeah.
to sort of educate them, give them as much information as possible, and then you hope they decide to go with you. Doesn't always go like that, but you hope they do. But you've given them the tools.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even if you don't get a sale in the interim, what you're still doing is you're planting seeds for possible
Yeah,
future interactions. And you just don't know when it comes back. Because a
yeah,
prime example, about 15 minutes before I jumped on here, I had a LinkedIn message from a person I've been connected with for 6 years. And I
yeah,
looked, my last message with them was 2019. And they
yeah,
just reached out to say, hey, I'm looking to do some sales training. Are you available? Now, I don't know whether anything is going to come of it, but the fact
yeah,
that I've responded
yeah,
and there's an opportunity there is hey, it could be good. But not having the attachment to the outcome is a key thing because you're
yeah.
planting seeds for future interactions.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome. I know you've had a great 2 years and you're above target and you're kicking goals left, right, and center, which I'm really, really happy for you. Take me back to, I guess, the first 90 days within Play Scheme. So making the transition from a head teacher, you did some coaching for a period of time, and then you've been given this opportunity. Because there'll be people listening to this who are either relatively new in sales, have hit a plateau, or looking
yeah,
for something to help them take themselves to the next
yeah.
level. What was your experience like in the first 30 or 60 days?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I suppose that your identity is very much sometimes caught up in your job, isn't it? And what you do. So it was very strange suddenly not to be a teacher, not to be a head teacher. And very straight. Even those negative connotations about being a salesman, I sort of worried about that. And instead, my title is project leader, and I hid behind that for quite a while. I say I even had I was at a party, and one of my friends introduced me to someone I'd never met before, and he just went, "Oh, you're a salesman then." I was something on the bottom of his foot. It was just, yeah, unbelievable. Like I was about to con him into buying a dodgy car or something. So it was almost like a bit of a punch in the guts. But I think one of the things that I did, and what I love about the podcast, Darren, is just again plugging into that. We're only a small company, so just plugging into that. It felt like I'd just plugged into a wider sales community and hearing. I mean, the amazing people on your podcast talk about sales, talk about the potential in sales and what you can achieve, but just their love and their passion for what they do. You're again regularly that you talk about the greatest act of service is sales, and it's about
Mm,
helping people, and that very much chimes with me. And I remember thinking, do you know, I just need to own this. I'm in the sales team. I'm proud of that. I changed my LinkedIn from project leader to proud to be in the sales team at Play Scheme. Again, I've had this at my appraisal recently. Just talked to my boss about actually changing my official title at the company as well to salesman. And I think Steve was saying we he can only think that that was tied in with that not wanting to have
mm,
that sort of salesman tag. I mean, I've had. I mean, the vast majority of my friends over the moon with they can see a big difference. I think they can see that I needed something new. I mean, a few people laughed at me when I said I was a salesman. Just it was quite hurtful at the time. Just crazy, crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, I love that sort of again that helping people, serving people. Uh, sorry, I'm losing my thread. I'm losing my
Uh,
thread of it.
I love the fact that you've embraced the sales title because one
Yeah,
of the challenges and teams that I work with, whether it be in corporate, big organizations or medium and even smaller organizations, sometimes they have sales teams, but they like to call them something different. And it could
yeah,
be, revenue generators or customer success type managers
yeah,
or account directors. For God's sake, you're in sales. You're there to actually make a sale. You're there to drive revenue. You're there to drive
yeah,
sales. So own it, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to be the pushy salesperson because that comes into the identity and what you stand for and what's
Yeah.
important to you.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that? Because you mentioned before the identity part and the fact that there are some people that might have laughed at you. The person at the social event said, "Oh, you're in sales, all right?" So, what kind of process did you go through um, to own that role? Because coming from a teaching background, it's probably easier to say, you know what, I'm not in sales, I'm an educator. I work with children, I work with parents, I work with curriculum designers,
Yeah.
etc., etc. But when you think about it, and this is what I say all the time, every single person on the planet is in sales. You don't have to be selling a product, you're selling yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about the identity process you went through that enabled you to then come out the other end and say, you know what, bugger it, I'm in sales and I'm going to be
Yeah.
damn well own it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think again, part of it, just listening to the great examples of people on your podcast. I did a lot of reading. So almost felt like I'd spent time with salespeople. But I think a lot of it came with confidence. And I mean, those first 90 days I'd gone, I mean, I got a fantastic induction process. John, who's Steve's dad, who started the company with Steve, he's an incredible salesperson, just brilliant. So he would take me out on visits. I mean, the first few visits, I think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to do this. But I mean, I quickly realized, and we've got another sales guy, Alan. They're both very experienced, both amazing, and I got loads of opportunities to go out with them. The thing that you realize straight away is they know their product inside out. They know play scheme. They know what we can do. So I straight away started. This is what I need to know, and I still add to it now. I take it with me on every sales visit. So almost like the key dimensions of some of the standard products, the materials, being able to talk about the materials. It might be surfacing, it might be the wood that we use, but all the different products. And then any question that comes up now that I don't know the answer to, I find it out. Obviously, always let the client know, but it goes on my list of things that I need to know. So I quickly learned that you almost a little bit fake it till you make it, but you want to make it as quick as possible because I think that confidence then comes in being a sales guy. Yeah, I'm a salesman and I'm a good one. I know what I'm
Mm.
talking about. So sort of that had a big impact. And then I think success in sales. Funnily enough, my first thing that I sold was a bit of old rope. It was
A bit of old
literally
rope.
money. Yeah. When we talk about rope, we're talking about like the widest, the biggest rope you ever imaginable. It was a rope off a dragon swing. And someone inquired if we had one, and Steve's like, "We've got one in our factory. It's been sat there for years. We bought it, and we didn't end up using it." So yeah, it was money for old ropes. I started small, but then thankfully I've got much bigger than that. And I think the confidence in knowing that you're doing a good job. I mean, I think in terms of who I am, I always want to be good at what I'm doing. When I was a teacher, I was a good teacher. I mean, our head teachers would introduce me to other head teachers as, oh, this is Michael, he's one of our outstanding teachers. I always want to be good at what I'm doing. I don't
Yeah,
want to do anything half-hearted. Uh, so it was brilliant as that sort of confidence came within the role and what I was doing. And then I think probably about towards beginnings of a year, being in there, that leadership side of me started kicking in, and I started seeing actually, and the things that I was learning off all the podcasts and the things that I was reading, thinking actually, I think we can, I think I can do better. I think I can make some changes, which is what Play Scheme are up for as well. So that's
yeah,
been really exciting. Getting to that point where I thought, yeah, I'm good at this, I can do this, and now I can start to grow the role because I can see how we can improve things.
yeah, yeah. Love it, love it. So there's lots you've covered up there. One is continuing to be educated in terms of well, technology and products and knowing your product, but also the continual education of
Yeah,
just keeping up to date with new technology, new products, and then education and constant education of your clients.
yeah,
From a I guess an initial transition going from the head teacher into coaching and then into the sales role. Were you given, because a lot of people are on probation for a period of time and they're given training, and you had the benefit of obviously working with Steve and his dad and going out and going out on calls like that. Talk to me about the initiation and some of the challenges. And a lot of what I've seen you do over the last 2 years in particular is you've got a voracious appetite for learning, and always taking on new information and always asking curiosity-based questions.
Yeah.
What were some of the, I guess, the obstacles that you had to encounter in your initial phases of making that transition?
Oh, that is a great, a great question. I think I'd say, I mean, I've maybe mentioned what the biggest obstacle is knowing the product because Play Scheme is not an off-the-shelf playground company. We've got standard products, but because we're bespoke, we can do anything. So that creates a challenge in itself. And even now, I get questions that I can't answer. So I think part of it was just being around in the office. It was always going to take time to get to know what we were doing. Uh, I think going into schools is my comfort zone. I love going into schools. I suppose you use what you can use, can't you? I always drop in that as a former teacher, so I'm a head teacher,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. Now I know with one particular head teacher, again, I think going back to that salesman thing, I think she thought I was trying to sell her a car, and I dropped in that I used to be a head teacher, and even the way she looked at me changed straight away. The whole conversation, the whole tone changed. It was like, all right, you're one of us, right? And now we can have a proper conversation. It was quite transformational. But I suppose it was one of the obstacles was going into places where I'm not as comfortable. So we do a lot of work in sort of smaller theme parks, farm parks. Obviously, that's a very different. It's all very much about, whereas education is about the child, developing the child. A lot of those it's about profit, isn't it? It really is about they want their clients to have a great time, but ultimately they want to make money out of this. So that was interesting getting into that sort of different mentality, different reasons, and just learning about that industry in terms of like a playground. We talk about second spends a lot and dwell time and just understanding their needs in a sort of environment that wasn't something that I'd come from.
Mm. It's interesting, isn't it? You mentioned before the lady who thought you were selling stuff until you mentioned, "Hey, I'm an ex head teacher." So we always talk about the fact that people like to do business with first of all people, right?
Yeah,
They love to buy, they love a buying experience, but ultimately they like to do business with those who they know, who they like, and who they trust.
yeah.
I remember I spoke to a guy called Steve Miller before Christmas, and he's a brand expert, and he also added to the fact that yeah, people also like to do business with people who they remember.
Yeah,
So, what sort of impression can you create upon somebody that may or may not end up in a sale, but at
yeah,
least you've actually planted those seeds that they'll remember
yeah,
you. So when they are ready to make a purchase, you're one of the first people they think
yeah.
about. That's a really important thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what since becoming a salesperson, we've had a bit of work done at our house, and I've been really excited about people coming to quote from very much almost analyzing what they're going to be like. So we had some new windows put in recently. Two people came round. One was definitely the favorite because we I knew him a little bit, and I knew some friends who's had some work done by him. I had to chase and chase and chase and chase to get the quote off him. Another person came. He was just very knowledgeable. He said, "Oh, I've just spent a bit of time telling me about the product." And then he told me the story of his company and how his company came to being. It was a father and son. He talked about his father wasn't around now, but I felt like I got to know him. He also saw my football scarf in the downstairs, so he engaged me in conversation, and I liked him. I liked him. He built up trust, and I think one of your podcasts, Darren, was about the power of storytelling within
Mm,
sales. Well, I'm probably going back a year and a half now, but
yeah,
that I always try to get in the story of the company, and I used to tell more of the story of the company, but I think after your podcast, tell my story as well because it's
yeah,
about people by people that by the salesman. So I tell my story, and again, we had another example. We had our drive done recently as well. We had three people came. The first one just had worry in his eyes the whole time. He was just talking about all the problems. And I thought, oh, I'm not, this is not for me. I can't remember the second guy, which says a lot. Third guy, full of enthusiasm. We can do this, we can do that, we'll do it like that. And even before I'd got the quotes in, I rang the first two and I said, that's all right, I've picked who I'm going with. very much, I didn't really care what the price was
Yeah.
going to be. I wanted the bloke who was really enthusiastic, who got me excited about a gravel drive. That's all it is at the front of the house. And I think I very much before any sort of sales meeting, when I'm just about to arrive in the car, maybe 10 minutes before, I just turn off whatever I'm listening to. Sorry, geez, Darren, if it is you. But I just start thinking, at the end of this meeting, how do I want the customers to feel? What do I want
Yeah.
them to think? And that's very much I want to get them excited about it. I want to be enthusiastic. Enthusiasm is contagious, isn't it?
Oh, it
Uh,
is.
and I want them to have that. Yeah, we like Michael. We trust him. We trust the company. And I got a lovely email just yesterday, a week ago. I was at the British Motor Museum, just south of Birmingham, and they want to develop their outside space. And a lovely email yesterday from the lady that I met, just saying it was really lovely to meet with someone just so enthusiastic about their project.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
Now, whether or not that turns into a transaction or a sale, what you've
yeah,
done is you've created an impression on that person that will only
yeah,
increase how they see you,
yeah,
but also how they see by association play
yeah,
scheme.
absolutely. Yeah,
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 which is brilliant. And this is why I keep saying that sales is literally the ultimate form of service. So
mm,
if there's a need, because I got to be really frank, and my name's Darren, so that's a bit of an Aussie joke, but there are a lot of people out there that just they lead with their product.
yeah,
And the default is when in doubt, I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm going to tell you more about my product to try to
yeah,
convince you that I've got the biggest, the best, the widest, the nicest, the most colorful, whatever the case might be.
yeah,
And what people don't realize is your customers are not interested in your product. They're not
mm,
waking up. Now, I'd like to ask you this question. If you look at your customer base and all the customers you've spoken to over the last 2 years, do you think any of them have been waking up in the morning and saying, you know what, I cannot wait to engage with Michael because he's going to talk to me about this fantastic play equipment that we need to put into the either the theme park or the school, right? Are they actually thinking about that?
when they wake up, are they waking up thinking about me, Darren?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, probably not, but yeah,
And so that's the whole thing because if we understand that people are not actually interested in your product, what they're
yeah,
interested in is
mm,
finding a solution to a problem they have, or they'll find out they have after having a conversation
yeah,
with you. And
yeah,
so my job is to try and figure out, is there a problem? Is there a
mm,
problem in another school, for example, that I've been able to solve? Can I now have a conversation around insights that
yeah,
put some light on the fact that maybe there is a problem at this particular school? And is
yeah.
there a possibility of us having a conversation about it? And it's not about flogging the product.
No, no. What is great about again the company that I work for? There is, schools are some weird and wonderful outside spaces, which is mainly what we do. And I think the fact that we can, one of our phrases, we can do anything, is we can usually present a solution, and that can be. I don't think you can sort of underplay the impact that can have on a school with particular issues, and transforming areas for the school, for the pupils, and it
Mm,
is it's a lovely thing to go somewhere, see this awful outside space. We do early years, we can develop playgrounds, and then to go back and see it absolutely transformed, see the children on it. We'll go back, we'll get testimonials, we'll get some pictures and videos, and it is a real buzz that we are transforming sort of these communities.
mm,
And I think at the moment it's with all like the mental health problems in schools, the lack of maybe physical fitness, and it's nice to be a real part of the solution, but it's nice for sort of head teachers to think, blimey, this is not my skill set, to be able to pick the phone up and think, yeah, yeah, we can do that, we can solve that.
yeah, brilliant. And so if you think about what you've done over the last couple of years, I'm going to make an assumption that you've got a lot of happy customers.
Yeah,
And I know that to be true, so it's not an assumption. Uh, how many of those customers do you think are going to be repeat customers? Or
yeah.
referral based customers because I mean the art of sales is, and you can't necessarily build a sustainable business on referrals. So you need to
No.
continue to do business development
Yeah.
stuff. But we often also talk about the fact that the sale doesn't begin until after the first sale or after the second sale is made. And so the credibility factor, are you a person who is trustworthy? Are you going to leave us after the product has been delivered? What happens after that? Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about, I guess, your approach to that, but also is it something that you've done instinctively, or is it something that Play Scheme has got in place in terms of servicing and keeping up to date with regular contact with your clients, with your customers, with your schools?
Yeah, I mean that has been one of the biggest thrills is going back to say a lot of when I started it was everyone's new and it's building those relationships. It's been a huge thrill to then go back, having done an installation, to go back and do another one. And that's brilliant. That relationship's already there. You can build on that relationship. Uh, in terms of sort of developing that, and this is some of the when I'm looking at thinking, oh, we can do things better, and it was I remember someone again on one of your podcasts saying if you're not doing referrals, then I can't remember what the word was, but it was you're not doing sales or something. It was like,
Yeah,
blimey, we're not. But thinking within what we do, how do we do referrals in a really good way? So something that we've started doing, and again, I think back to me sitting in my office as a head teacher and what would have worked with me when we often get those emails, don't we, from companies, spam emails. And I mean, I was very much, my routine was unsubscribe because I
yeah,
get enough emails. I don't need spam ones. But we've sort of developed a system where we've done an installation, school are happy. We put like a nice little email package together, really simple, with a nice quote from the head teacher. This is what we've had done by Play Scheme. Really hardly anything in. And then if the head teacher sends that out to all of their head teacher contacts and schools, we'll send a nice bundle of cakes for the staff room as a bit of a thank you for doing that. Because I know that as a head teacher, if one of my heads, another head teacher who I know and trust, says we've had some work done by a company, we love it, I'll remember that. And it might be 1 year, it might be 2 years, but I won't forget that.
yeah,
And sort of that power of, and we're just starting to pick up some work from that. So that's one thing that we've put in on the back of just listening to that sort of stinging comment from one of your podcasts. But again, in terms of keeping in touch, we do loads on LinkedIn. We do really well on LinkedIn, but we've also just started for our own customer base. We do regular MailChimps now.
yeah,
And again, I try to make them not salesy. It's just
yeah,
very much this is what we have case studies on our website and we're trying to develop them. And it's very much here's a few pictures of a recent installation, a nice quote, click on the link and it'll take you to the case study if you want to read any more. So it's just almost just keeping in touch with people, but it's not
yeah,
not the hard sale. And I think I loved again another one of your recent podcasts when one of your guests was talking about going in the Apple Store and he talked about how many words are in the Apple Store. And I think was it three? That was it? Because
yeah, about
the
that.
yeah, it was all images and the product sells the product. So that's sort of our approach to it as well.
Nice. And it's just continual education. And I think
Mm.
the as you were talking, the approach where you've got a head teacher sharing it with their contacts and sharing their
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
And it's not that they're going to be doing it necessarily, or maybe they're going to do it because they love the cakes as a
yeah,
bit of a incentive, but it's a classic
yeah,
example of third party proof, isn't it? Social proof
yeah,
that
absolutely.
instead of you going to the school and saying excuse me, how good are we, look at what we've done in this
Yeah,
school, if you have somebody else say look at what Play Scheme have done, look what Michael has actually helped create, that
yeah,
now adds a level of credibility where there's also a level of trust that's transferred to
yeah,
you, which
yeah,
means you're more likely to have a more warmer involvement or engagement
yeah.
with that particular individual or that school, which is
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the key learnings for me has been that the power of the relationship, which again, it's education as well. The power of the relationship with the children and a teacher is huge. That's part of again selling the learning. If the children are sat there, they love the teacher. They'll just go with you. And
Yeah,
I think in sales that's key. One of the best things that we've done is within education's changed a lot. There used to be schools would almost sit on their own within authority. We've now got lots of academies in schools now that work very differently. And I think my understanding of schools now, I was able to bring that in. So we've been inviting the facilities leaders of academies into play scheme because they probably, I would imagine, most of their job is just fixing,
Mm.
solving problems. So we invite them into play scheme. We say, well, we'll get a lot of cakes. We'll say we'll get some nice cakes in. We'll show you around the workshop. We'll talk you what's going through the workshop. You can spend some time in the design team, and then we'll have a little chat about how we can sort of help you. And we have like a bit of a nothing signed, it's a bit of a handshake agreement that any sort of job within our skill set, if it comes up within your academy, any of your schools, we get a chance to quote with no obligation, and
Yeah.
we'll give you a deal. We'll give you a deal as well, and that's worked really, really well for us. Just building relationships and good relationships, and sort of again identifying the who are the key people that we need to sort of be with.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and it's again, it comes back to the fact that it's not just one transaction. You're actually investing and continuing to invest
Yeah.
in your customers, because it may not necessarily be, because if you think about what you guys sell, it's
Mm.
what's the average lifespan of a bespoke solution you put in place?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to think I mean, if someone looks after it, you're probably looking 50, 15, 20 years
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not like it's a transactional product. So it's a fair, and it's for most schools it would be a fairly hefty investment, I would have thought. So they have
yeah,
to have budgetary and all that sort of stuff. So it's
absolutely.
not something that they're going to be buying one every 12 months. So,
No,
but the investment, and the thing that I love about what you've been talking about is the continual investment in the relationship, where a lot of other organizations will get the sale and they'll think, oh, whew, the opportunity probably won't exist for another 10, 15 years, and I'm not going to be here. So what's the point? Right?
yeah,
You've got a completely different focus and say, no, I've got to continue to educate. I've got to continue to stay in contact with these people,
yeah,
because who knows, that head teacher might move to another school. There might be something that they want to add to it.
yeah,
There's always going to be opportunity.
absolutely.
And the
Yeah,
key thing I'm hearing from you and all the conversations we have via LinkedIn is keeping you as an individual, and by default play scheme, top of mind with your ideal
yeah.
customer. And there's a lot of organizations out there and it's pretty old school, but they say, you know what, Michael, if you're not out there talking to your customer, then your competitors are. That's it's pretty old school, right? But the metaphor there, or the analogy, is you've just got to continue to be in regular contact with your customers, right?
Yeah,
If and it's not to the point where you've got to sell them something else. It's just asking them questions, because one of the things I just wrote down was customer feedback, right? So what sort of customer feedback do you get from these customers, whether it be parents, head
yeah.
teachers, teachers, after school care, kids themselves, that can help?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the feedback from the kids is always brilliant. And again, that in terms of the feedback from the product, that's something we've been working on. So we just send a very simple Google form now. It says what worked well, what could have worked better, and that's all sort of fed into how we can improve as a company. We ask for Google reviews as well, because again, one of the things that we've been working on over the last year and a bit is really sort of developing our website and trying to be more Google friendly. So getting those reviews on. So we've worked really hard on that as well. Uh, and I think again, it's just again the skills that are sort of myself is that self-reflection is so important. And it's great at thinking what we could do, but when it's coming from the customer as well, then there's sort of real power in that to sort of,
Mm,
yeah, we could have done that a little bit better. Or actually,
yeah,
that's worked really well. We need to keep doing that.
yeah, absolutely. So with that, looking back on the last 2 years, is there anything, and reflection is a great thing because we should always be
Yeah.
doing it. And I don't want to say, oh, if you had your time over, Michael, would you do anything different? But just reflecting on the last 2 years, and I guess the journey you've been on,
Yeah.
what are some of the, I guess, the key insights or the key lessons you've taken away? Because it's been a very different journey than the previous 23 years.
Yeah. I think definitely that just being just ready to absorb everything, being really excited, listening, learning, applying, but thinking as well. Is that in our context, is that going to work? I think being a really good listener is crucial, and that, again, it's crucial in education. It's crucial as a coach, but when you are on a sales meet as well, listening, don't interrupt the crowd. Just let them talk, let them share. I did make a I made a few mistakes early doors where if they had an idea that I think, oh, that's not going to work, and I just remember distinctively cutting someone off straight away, saying, oh, we wouldn't recommend that, and I could just see I just burst the bubble completely. This person was really excited about what they're doing, and I've completely burst the bubble, and I really kicked myself. And now, although that advice was right, because this is what we do all the time, it was the wrong way to do it. So I've got very much bite your tongue, listen. Then, when you're ready to speak, you can then talk about different options and what you'd advise. So, certainly, how to just listen, how to respond to clients' needs, how to keep that sort of like real, that buzz going.
Yeah,
I think that's been my key learning. And again, yeah, just knowing your product, being really enthusiastic about it. And I think just being consistent, because that's like you say, trust. Consistency builds trust.
yeah. Um, this might sound like a bit of a left of field question, and I like asking sales leaders this, not so much on the podcast, but more in
Yeah.
um, a coaching context. If you look back on the last couple of years, Michael, what's been your biggest mistake?
uh, Again, I suppose it's like that. Yeah, on one meeting, I turned up. They said, and I think schools think might think. I mean, I remember it. Schools think like £4,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah,
So I turned up saying, "Oh, we've got a brilliant budget. Uh, what we want like a big adventure trail. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a great job." And I said, "Oh, how much are you hoping?" I mean, we say, "How much are you hoping to spend?" She went, "Well, we've got £4,000." And I said, and I can't believe I said it now. I said, "Well, that's not going to get you much." I was like, as soon as I'd said it, you just wanted to grab the words out of the air and ram them back down your throat. And you could see the look on their heads. I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. So yeah, that would very much my biggest mistake. Yeah, engage your brain before your mouth.
but with that also is you've got to then understand where you position
Yeah,
your solution in the marketplace. So
absolutely. Yeah,
there's a lot of there's a lot of people out there and a lot of organizations that have a commodity based product and it's all a
mm,
pricing war,
yeah,
etc. And there's always a race to the bottom.
mm,
But you've got to understand what is the solution that you provide, what is the solution to
yeah,
the problem that you provide, and
absolutely.
be okay with, you know what, we're a premium product, right?
Yeah,
We're not just for anybody. And so this often is a mindset. It's
mm,
not, can I try to convince you to take my product? It's a case of,
yeah,
hmm. And you don't say this. You don't say, hey, Michael, convince me as to why I should provide you this product. But the mindset
absolutely.
is,
Yeah,
does this customer qualify for the solution that I have to offer?
yeah,
Now, if I
absolutely.
can
Yeah,
do that, then price theoretically, and I say that in inverted commas, shouldn't be an issue because it's all
no,
about value and what it's designed to help with.
yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe on that example as well, maybe there's a little bit of commission breath there as well, where I was thinking this is it, this will be, and again towards the start of my career. I mean that's not me, and I'm just getting used to a job where you get commission. The value for me was almost in like the success you see in the children. It's a
Mm.
very sort of different sort of mindset, and I think very much now. I hope I go very much wanting to serve, do a great job. The commission sorts itself out,
Yeah.
and that's very much, and I think that's probably was the issue there as well. That I thought big budget, this is going to be great for me, instead of thinking about the customer.
Now, look, I want to make it really clear. There's nothing wrong with commission, right?
Yeah,
So, but as salespeople and certainly as sales leaders, we shouldn't lead with what's in it for us because that's a byproduct. And
yeah,
some of the greatest sales leaders and salespeople I've worked with and have spoken with,
mm,
um, they actually don't know what their commission is because it's not important to them, right? Because it's
yeah,
all about how do I serve the customer? How do I give them what they're looking for? How do I make
yeah,
them really satisfied with their
yeah,
purchase and make them feel comfortable and help them feel comfortable that they've made
yeah,
the best buying decision they can possibly make? And if I
yeah.
get benefit of that afterwards, hey, great, but I'm not driven by that.
Yeah. From one of my sons, my oldest son's friends, just gone into sales. First year in the sales industry in a massive, huge company, and doesn't like it just because he said the people that they work with, it's all about their commission, it's all about their bonuses, and said that's not what drives me. And so it was nice to be able to have that chat and say, yeah, I know where you're coming from. This is now my approach, and I said I hope that helps.
So that leads me to a question I'd love to ask you around the power of association. So, um, I think you commented or you like to post or put on the on LinkedIn on the weekend around being really clear on who you surround yourself with. Um, if you look at the last 2 years and all the research you've done, all the reading you've done, all the professional development you've done, and also tapping into your
Yeah,
extensive experience as a head teacher and as an educator, can you
yeah,
talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the power of who you associate with and how that's helped you in your sales career? Because just referring to that conversation you just had with your son's friend,
yeah,
other people could say, yeah, don't get into sales because it's all about commission, and that influence could actually get that person to choose not to go down a pathway
yeah.
that is probably going to cost them hundreds, if not millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of my best friends is called Andy, and he we started our teaching career together. We worked for 12 years together in schools, and now he works for an early years company, travels the country, developing sort of indoor spaces, does a lot of training on early years, and sales is a big part of his job. So he was one of the first people I spoke to, and he said, Michael, I love this. It's the best bit of the job. I love the sales part of it because it's just great to people need help, people need guidance. Again, working in schools, people are very, very busy. They need to know that you can provide a solution and provide it quickly.
Mm,
So he's been great and someone that I regularly talk to. I think within the company itself. Again, my MD Steve has got really good values. He's a brilliant salesman as well. In a we're here to serve you. He'll always make comments as well that yeah, actually we're a great company. This is us. You might not choose us, but this is who we are. And I think that approach has really sort of influenced me. And I have an incredible wife as well, Darren, who's been in a very sort of turbulent time, and in terms of even our family finances and the impact that moving on from a really highly paid job, uh, she's been an absolute rock throughout it. So yeah, she's amazing.
it is absolutely that is really cool. So as you look into 2025, you've just come off your first 2 years. You've now got your sales professional title on LinkedIn, so you're embracing the sales role, which is awesome. You've
Yeah.
smashed your targets the last couple of years. Looking forward now, um, what's next for you? What's the next, I guess, not so much hurdle, but what's the next mountain you're looking to scale from your sales careers perspective?
Yeah. I think within play scheme it's just getting that real regular though. So we've got some really great jobs coming in, and I'd love to get to the point where we're thinking actually we can't come and see you for because we're so super busy. I think that's where we'd love to be in that position. But also, I think within that bespoke industry, just the whole different nature of jobs that we can do and the different things, and it's great to do something completely different as well. So I think for me, it would be great to see the look what we've had done that the head teachers are sending out and see the impact of the things that sort of that have come from my ideas and my sort of research. I'd love to see in terms of the regular MailChimp, just that working and a real uptake in the schools. Because probably, I mean, Steve will say about 10 years ago, 80% of Play Schemes work was in schools, but budgets
Yeah.
have just been cut and cut and cut and cut. So I'd love to see that we sort of build that up again. So I think that would be that just real sustainable model of what we're doing is generating
Mhm.
sales, but also within that, it's that new customers, but it's that repeat customers as well, isn't it? Because we know they wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when it becomes the ultimate form of service because
Yeah,
you become you become a loyal, not so much a supplier, but you become a loyal partner because you're
yeah,
integral to what they're trying to achieve in their
mm,
environment, which is which is really cool. So Mate, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm conscious of the time, and you probably have to get into the car and get into the office. Um, for people listening to this, and if there was one piece of guidance or advice based on your experience over the last couple of years, in relation to sales, and it's not so much
Yeah,
people getting into sales or just maybe people who've potentially plateaued or they're starting the new year and they didn't have a great 2024 and they're looking
yeah.
to improve things. From your experience and from the stuff that you've done, what's one piece of guidance or advice that you'd like to leave us with that might help some people maybe take that one step forward towards a better sales future?
Yeah, I mean, I think very much being brave, and I'm here and loving what I'm doing because that probably the bravest thing that I'd ever done was change careers. And I think just have that insatiable appetite for learning, and even, I mean, I used to say as a head teacher that I want to learn something on my very last day working in the job. So I think listen to sales podcasts, read books, get on LinkedIn, see what other people are doing in the industry maybe and sometimes just clear your diary and just try and think outside the box. What's working well, what's not working. And I think there's so much power in talking as well, Darren, isn't there? Talk to
Yeah,
people,
yeah,
share it. I think I mean I had about 3 months where it was a real quiet time and probably within the calendar year for us, it was probably sort of hit that quiet period where all the farm parks, schools are winding down for the summer. The farm parks are building up for the summer. The last thing they want, everything's done, and just being able to share that with someone and say, yeah, that's just what it's like at the moment. It will build up, but let's
yeah.
think, what can we do in the meantime? 'Cause I
Mm,
think sometimes those periods where, and it's a bit like that in schools where your results are not very good. That's an opportunity to do something different, isn't it? To do something
it
new,
is.
to think of it. Let's come at it at a different point of view, but let's talk as well. Let's talk to people. Let's get people in and let's just bounce some ideas around.
Again, the power of association. So it's almost like
Absolutely.
the getting the mastermind together, right? Talking to
Yeah.
people who you trust,
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily have to be people in the same industry.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't necessarily have to be salespeople per se, because there's a
No.
lot there's a lot of great insights you can get from people from different perspectives. And often when you talk about out of the box thinking, bringing people in that you wouldn't ordinarily think, what do they have to do with this? They might give you a perspective you never thought about, which could just be the thing that is the catalyst for things
Yeah.
exploding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Love that, Darren.
Awesome, mate. So I know you're based in York in the UK, but you're
Yeah.
also very heavily involved in LinkedIn as well. So I'm gonna suggest for people who are listening to this, please do yourself a favor and make sure you connect with Michael. Is there any other places where they can connect with you and engage with you, Michael?
Well, I mean, LinkedIn, I mean, that's a great place to do it. I mean, if you, our Play Scheme website, if you just Google Play Scheme York, England, if you're not in England, I'm sure you'll find us. So yeah, my email's addressed on there, but I would probably say down LinkedIn's probably the best place to go.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. And mate, we've been connected on LinkedIn for a while now, so loving the interaction,
Yeah.
and it's been an absolute pleasure. First of all, following your journey over the
Yeah.
last couple of years,
Yeah.
it's such a refreshing thing to see somebody who's embraced the sales career and the sales discipline. And you mentioned
Yeah.
you mentioned the appetite in the education and the continual education.
Yeah.
It's actually inspiring, and I think I've said that to you before. But also, it's absolutely a great pleasure to have you on the podcast, mate. So,
Ah, well, thank you. Well, funny enough, I was listening just before Christmas. I think I went over to Leeds for a job, and I was listening to you. I was just thinking, oh, I hope at some point in my career that Darren asked me to come on. And then within a few days, you'd messaged. It was like, wow. So yeah, I'm
mate,
very excited to be on.
planting seeds, my friend, planting
That's
seeds.
it.
Love it. Mate, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the
Pleasure. Yeah.
podcast. And yeah, look forward to continuing to follow your journey and staying connected.
Yeah. Nice one. Cheers, Darren.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it, But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.